My name is Jonathan Wright. I've always been someone who worked hard, kept my head down, and believed that eventually, the right thing would happen. I was the kind of guy who would get things done quietly in the background, while others enjoyed the spotlight. I didn't mind it. I liked the idea of my work speaking for itself, even if it meant that I didn't always get the recognition I deserved. I graduated from university with a business degree, filled with ambition, eager to prove myself. I joined a mid-sized firm called Belmore Enterprises, a company with a good reputation, but that was nowhere near as established as the big players in the industry. Still, I saw potential. I was going to work my way up, no matter the obstacles. For the first few months, everything was great. I worked directly under my boss, Alan Foster, the company's COO. Alan was smart, quick-witted, and had a reputation for being ruthless in the corporate world. He was the type of person who believed that success came from stepping on anyone who got in your way, even if it meant leaving others in the dust. But at the time, I didn't see it. I respected him, saw him as a mentor even. That was my mistake. One afternoon, a week before the company's biggest pitch of the year, I had an idea. The kind of idea that could change everything for Belmore Enterprises. It was simple, really. A creative solution that could streamline our processes and give us an edge over our competition. I presented it to Alan, explaining how this new approach could boost our efficiency and impress the client we were preparing for. He was intrigued, at least that's what I thought. He told me to fine-tune the proposal, but I noticed a strange glimmer in his eyes. Something was off, but I brushed it aside. I was eager to contribute, to make my mark. So, I worked tirelessly, refining my idea, building a presentation that would blow the client away. The day before the pitch, Alan called me into his office. His demeanor was casual, almost too casual. He told me that he'd decided to go in a different direction with the proposal, but that he'd take my suggestions into account. I couldn't help but feel uneasy. He didn't seem particularly interested in my work anymore. But I didn't press it. I should have. The next morning, I watched as Alan took the stage to present the pitch to our largest client yet. One that could elevate Belmore Enterprises to a level of success we had only dreamed of. As he began, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The slides that he was presenting, the exact ones I had worked on, were now accompanied by his words, his credit, his name. He didn't mention me. Not once. I sat in the back of the room, feeling my stomach twist. Every word he spoke felt like a slap in the face. He was taking full credit for my work. This wasn't the first time I had been in a situation where I was overlooked, but this felt different. This felt like betrayal. I had poured my heart into that idea, and now it was being stolen right in front of me, and no one, least of all Alan, seemed to care. When the presentation ended, Alan stood tall, exuding the kind of confidence that made everyone in the room believe his words were gospel. The client was impressed, and I knew the deal was as good as done. But something gnawed at me. Alan had just claimed the biggest success of his career without acknowledging the effort of the person who had truly put in the work. As the meeting broke up, Alan gave me a brief, dismissive nod as if to say, "Good job, kid." That was all. No recognition. No gratitude. Nothing. I was left standing in the shadows, my work reduced to nothing more than a tool for his success. I spent the next few days in a daze, feeling the sting of betrayal deeper with each passing hour. But the worst was yet to come. The following Friday, Alan called me into his office. I tried to remain composed, hoping that maybe he'd realize the injustice he'd done and offer some sort of apology or at least an acknowledgement. Instead, he sat me down and, without so much as a preamble, dropped the bombshell. "Jonathan," he began, looking at me with an unsettling calmness, "I'm going to have to let you go." I blinked, taken aback. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Let me go? This wasn't happening. What? But Aunt. He cut me off with a wave of his hand. This is how the real world works. You've been underperforming, and frankly, you're not cutting it anymore. The company needs people who can push boundaries, not just sit on the sidelines. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. He was firing me, but not just firing me. He was doing it with such coldness, without any explanation or reason that made sense. My heart pounded in my chest as the reality of the situation began to settle in. The truth was undeniable. Alan was getting rid of me because I had become a threat to his own success. I had done the work, but he wanted to take all the credit. And now, he was discarding me like a broken tool once he had used me up. I was numb as I gathered my things, too shocked to even muster up the anger that was slowly building within me. I left Alan's office and walked out of Belmore Enterprises, my head spinning, my future uncertain. But that night, something shifted inside me. I couldn't just let this go. I had been wronged, and not just by Alan, but by the entire system that allowed someone like him to get away with this kind of behavior. I couldn't just walk away from my career, my ideas, my future. I had to make things right. The following morning, I received a call that would set the course for the rest of my life. It was the client, the one we had just secured the deal with, the one who had been so impressed with Alan's presentation. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, but I could tell something was off. "Mr. Wright," the voice asked, "we regret to inform you that we are canceling our contract with Belmore Enterprises." My stomach dropped. "What? What?" I stammered, struggling to make sense of what was happening. "We've decided to go in a different direction," the voice said curtly. "Thank you for your time, but we no longer require your services." The line went dead before I could ask another question. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Our biggest contract, the one Alan had been riding high on, had just been canceled. And in that moment, I knew what had happened. Alan's smug confidence, his arrogance, had led him to believe he could ride out this deal without truly understanding the foundation it was built on. The idea that had made the deal possible was mine. His theft of my work, my brilliance, had now led to the company's downfall. I didn't waste a second. I picked up my phone and called Alan. I knew he'd be panicking. I could almost hear his voice in my head, desperate to smooth things over with the client. He would be begging for their forgiveness, trying to salvage whatever he could. But when he picked up the phone, I didn't say a word. Instead, I simply spoke one sentence, the one that would change everything. "You're speaking with the new CEO." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Alan's breath caught. He didn't know how to respond. "Jonathan, what? What are you talking about?" he stammered, clearly rattled. "I've just secured the future of this company," I said, my voice calm, controlled. "And now, I'm in charge. It's over, Alan. Your game is up." The next few days were a whirlwind. I had no idea how I was going to pull this off, but the idea of leaving everything to Alan's hands, his deceit, his greed, his careless arrogance, was no longer an option. I had been wronged, and now it was time to turn the tables. But there was no way to do this without a strategy. After that call with Alan, I went straight to work. The first thing I did was contact the board members. To my surprise, most of them had been on the fence about Alan for months. They had never been completely comfortable with his approach, but he had delivered results, at least until now. The cancellation of our biggest contract had sent ripples through the company, and people were starting to doubt his leadership. It wasn't just the client. It was his general mismanagement that had started to tarnish Belmore's reputation. I was at a crossroads. As I stood in front of the board, I had no formal position to back me. I wasn't a senior executive. I wasn't someone they had placed any particular trust in. But I had something that Alan didn't: the truth. I started by presenting the real story, the idea that had been stolen from me, the way Alan had claimed credit for my work, and how, when everything was on the line, he had made reckless decisions that cost us the biggest contract we had ever landed. Their faces were hard to read, but I could tell they were listening. They had their doubts about Alan, and I could sense their desperation to salvage the company's future. I didn't give them a sob story or beg for sympathy. I laid out the facts. I showed them the potential of my idea and how, with proper leadership, Belmore could recover and even thrive. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, one of the board members, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah, leaned forward. "Jonathan," she said, her tone calculated but respectful, "I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You've presented a compelling case, and frankly, you're right. Alan has lost his way. But what makes you think you can lead this company? What makes you think you can take over now?" I paused. This was the moment that could either make or break me. I had no answer for her beyond the truth. "I don't think I can do it," I said slowly, meeting her gaze. "I know I can." There was something in my voice, a quiet determination, that seemed to shift the mood in the room. Sarah exchanged a look with another board member, and before I knew it, they were voting. The result wasn't even close. I had the votes. Alan's position as COO was revoked, effective immediately. I was now in charge of the company I had once thought was just a stepping stone on my career path. The power, the weight of responsibility, hit me like a freight train. But it wasn't fear that I felt. It was a sense of resolve. I had been underestimated, overlooked, and betrayed. But now I had control. I called a company-wide meeting for the following morning. The employees, many of whom had watched Alan rise to power, were shocked when I announced that I had taken over as CEO. The air was thick with disbelief and skepticism. People didn't know what to expect from me, but they were eager for change. The truth about Alan's behavior was starting to surface, and the mood was shifting in the office. I was quick to assure them that Belmore Enterprises wasn't going to crumble, that we were going to move forward with a new direction. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoring the integrity and success that Alan had so carelessly dismantled. But things were more complicated than I had anticipated. Within hours, Alan was in my office. He was furious, his face red with anger. He slammed the door behind him, and I could feel the heat radiating off him. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he shouted. "This is my company. I built it. You're nothing but a kid who thought he could take my place." I remained calm. I had to. The anger inside me was bubbling up, but I knew I couldn't afford to lose control. "It's not your company, Alan. It never was. You built it on the backs of others, on my back. You stole from people who worked hard, and now it's coming back to bite you. You think you're better than me?" Alan spat, stepping forward. "You think they'll follow you? You're a nobody." I stood up slowly, meeting his gaze with the kind of calm confidence I hadn't known I was capable of. "I don't think I'm better than you, Alan. I know I am." He scoffed, backing away as if my words had stung more than he cared to admit. "You'll regret this. You have no idea what you're up against. I built this place from the ground up, and you destroyed it." I replied, my voice low but steady. "You couldn't see what was right in front of you." Alan's face twisted with fury, but there was something else there too, a flicker of doubt, a recognition that he was losing control. It wasn't just his career at stake anymore, it was his pride. But I didn't care. He had taken everything from me, and now it was time to take back what was rightfully mine. I didn't expect Alan to leave quietly, but I didn't expect him to resort to sabotage either. The days after I took over as CEO were filled with constant pressure. Every decision felt heavy, as though the fate of the company hung in the balance with each move I made. The board had placed their trust in me, and now it was my responsibility to rebuild Belmore Enterprises. But it wasn't just the company I had to worry about. Alan was out for blood, and I could feel his shadow looming over every step I took. It didn't take long before I realized just how far Alan was willing to go to make me fail. He had always been the kind of person who played dirty, and now that he was out of the picture, I saw just how deep his treachery ran. The first signs of sabotage came in the form of missing documents. Contracts that I needed to review for upcoming deals mysteriously disappeared from the office. My emails were hacked, confidential information leaked, and every time I turned around, something crucial had gone awry. I tried to remain composed, but I could feel the walls closing in. Alan was doing everything he could to sabotage me from the inside, and it was working. I didn't need to be told twice. I knew it was him. Alan had left behind a network of loyalists within the company, people who were still under his influence, and he had the means to cripple Belmore from the outside. But I couldn't let him win. I wasn't going to let him destroy everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed for. One evening, I was at the office late, poring over the missing contracts when I received a call. It was from Sarah, the board member who had been my biggest supporter in taking over the company. "Jonathan," her voice was tight with urgency. "There's something you need to know." I immediately felt my heart rate spike. "What is it?" "I just got off the phone with one of our clients. They've received an anonymous email warning them about Belmore's internal corruption and suggesting they should pull out of their deal with us." My stomach churned. "No," I whispered. "This has to be Alan. He's trying to tank us." Sarah paused. "I'm afraid it's more than that. I've been digging into his finances. After everything that's happened, I thought it might be useful to understand just how far gone things really are with him. And, Jonathan, there's something you need to see." I could feel the ground beneath me shift. "What is it, Sarah?" "Alan has been funneling company funds into his own private accounts. For years, he's been slowly bleeding Belmore dry, hiding it under the radar. He's been planning to take the company down from the inside, but it seems he got impatient. He's speeding up the process." I was silent for a moment, the weight of her words crashing down on me. It wasn't just a matter of professional rivalry. It was financial theft, sabotage, and a calculated betrayal. Alan wasn't just trying to undermine me personally. He was attempting to destroy everything we had worked for, to wipe out the company he had so callously manipulated. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I took a deep breath. "We need to act fast," I said, my voice steady. "This is bigger than we thought." Sarah agreed. We began to gather evidence of Alan's crimes, but I knew we couldn't just let him get away with it. We had to hit him where it hurt, hard. But I also knew that confronting him head-on would be dangerous. He had nothing left to lose, and if he was pushed into a corner, he would fight back with everything he had. The decision was made. I would confront Alan one last time. The following day, I arranged to meet him in a neutral location, away from the prying eyes of the office. I didn't want to make this public yet, not until I had everything in place. When I walked into the dimly lit cafe, Alan was already seated, his back turned to me. He looked smaller now, more defeated. The arrogance that once exuded from him had faded, replaced by something darker, a desperation that I could feel from across the room. I took a seat across from him without a word. We both stared at each other for a moment, the silence hanging heavily between us. Finally, Alan broke it, his voice low. "You think you've won, don't you? This is just the beginning, Jonathan. You can't handle this company. You'll fall just like I did." I didn't answer him immediately. Instead, I pulled out a folder from my briefcase and placed it on the table. "I have everything, Alan. The financial records, the emails, the contracts you've siphoned off to your personal accounts. I have it all." His eyes flickered with recognition, but he quickly masked it with a smirk. "You think you can bring me down with paperwork? You have no idea who you're dealing with." I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with, and that's why I'm going to make sure you never hurt anyone again." He snorted. "You're just a kid, Jonathan. You don't know what it takes to run a company. You don't know how to play the game." I let out a soft laugh. "No, Alan, you don't know how to play the game. You played it by your own rules, and now you're paying the price." Alan's face darkened, his jaw tightening. "You're making a mistake. You have no idea what I'm capable of." I stood up, my resolve firm. "No, Alan, you've made the mistake, and I'm going to make sure it's the last one you ever make." I walked out of the cafe, leaving Alan behind. But I knew that this wasn't the end, not yet. He wasn't done fighting, and neither was I. The battle for Belmore Enterprises was far from over, but I had one thing he didn't: control. I had the power to rebuild, to restore the integrity of the company, and to take down the man who thought he could destroy it all. The following days felt like a battle of attrition, each moment more tense than the last. The pressure was mounting on all sides. Alan's sabotage was becoming more blatant, and the board members were starting to grow wary. I could see it in their eyes. They were waiting for me to fail. For the past few years, Alan had been the face of Belmore Enterprises, the man who had always found a way out of tight situations. I wasn't him. I didn't have his network, his charisma, or the same ruthless instincts. But what I had, what I could rely on, was something far more valuable: integrity. The moment I had left the cafe, I knew I had to act fast. I immediately contacted the legal team and arranged for an official audit of Belmore Enterprises. The documents I had on Alan were damning, but I knew that bringing those to light without proper legal backing would only make me look like I was grasping at straws. If I wanted to take him down for good, I needed proof that couldn't be ignored. It was a grueling process, but within days, we had everything we needed. The forensic audit revealed millions of dollars in misappropriated funds, bogus accounts opened under fake names, and contracts that had been redirected to Alan's private ventures. It was the smoking gun I had been searching for. I met with Sarah late one evening to discuss the next steps. "We have the evidence now, Jonathan. We can't let him get away with this. We need to present this to the board, and we need to do it before he can make another move." I nodded. "I agree, but we can't rush into it. I need to get ahead of him. I know he's already plotting his next move." "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice tinged with both caution and hope. "You're not just fighting for the company anymore. You're fighting for your future, for your reputation. This is your shot to show them what you're really made of." I looked down at the papers in front of me, the weight of the moment pressing on me. This wasn't just about Belmore anymore. This was about reclaiming my life, taking back control from a man who had tried to destroy me and everyone around me. "I'm ready," I said firmly. The next morning, I called a board meeting. The room was heavy with tension, the members filing in one by one. Alan was nowhere to be seen. It was clear that he wasn't going to show up for the fight. He knew he was losing. His bravado had faltered, and now he was hiding in the shadows, too scared to face the consequences of his actions. As I stepped up to the front of the room, I could feel all eyes on me. There was no turning back now. I had to show them that I wasn't just some lucky kid who had been handed the reins. I had to show them that I was the leader Belmore needed, the one who could restore it to its former glory and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice calm but unwavering. I've called this meeting today not just to report the state of Belmore Enterprises, but to address the real issue at hand, the issue that has been plaguing this company for far too long. A toxic culture that starts at the top, with someone who has stolen, manipulated, and lied to get ahead. That person is Alan. A murmur ran through the room. The board members shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging furtive glances. I knew they were aware of the rumors surrounding Alan, but hearing it out in the open was another thing entirely. I have here the results of a full forensic audit of our finances. I continued, holding up the folder. The evidence speaks for itself. Alan has been siphoning company funds into his own accounts for years. He's taken advantage of every opportunity to line his pockets while leaving this company on the brink of collapse. And now, he's trying to sabotage the very people who could save it. I laid out the documents, the proof of his embezzlement, the hidden accounts, the deals he had made under the table, and the damage he had caused. The room was silent, the reality of it all sinking in. I could see the shock on their faces. Some of them were angry, others were afraid, but none of them could deny the truth. Finally, I turned to Sarah. I'm asking for your support in removing Alan from any further involvement with this company. We can no longer afford to let him stay in power, to continue to sabotage our efforts. If we want to rebuild Belmore, we need to act now. Sarah, who had been quiet until then, nodded firmly. I second that motion, she said. One by one, the other board members followed suit, their votes making it official. Alan was out. The company was now in my hands, and the road ahead would be a difficult one, but I was determined to take it. The fallout wasn't immediate. Alan fought back, of course. He had his lawyers, and he wasn't about to go down without a fight. But it didn't matter. I had the truth on my side, and the board was firmly behind me. Alan's attempts to destabilize Belmore only made his eventual downfall more inevitable. In the following weeks, I worked tirelessly to regain the trust of the employees, the clients, and the shareholders. It wasn't easy. Many were still hesitant, still scarred by the years of Alan's mismanagement. But I made it my mission to show them that things had changed, that Belmore could be something better. Slowly, I began to rebuild the company's reputation, making strategic decisions that restored our standing in the industry. But more than that, I found that the people around me started to believe in me. They saw that I was committed to their success, to their growth, and to the integrity of the company. It wasn't just about the numbers anymore. It was about trust, and I had earned theirs. The morning the news broke about Alan's arrest for embezzlement, I felt a strange mix of relief and closure. The company was moving forward, and I was finally in control of my own fate. Alan had underestimated me, thinking that his manipulations would be enough to break me. But in the end, it was his own downfall that paved the way for my rise. As I sat in my new office, overlooking the skyline, I realized that the fight for Belmore had never been just about business. It had been about something deeper, about proving to myself that I could rise above the challenges, that I could turn the tables on those who tried to bring me down, and that I was capable of leading, not just surviving. And as for Alan, well, he was no longer a threat. But I had learned something valuable through it all. In the real world, it's not just about winning the fight. It's about knowing how to fight, knowing when to take control, and knowing that the true victory comes from never giving up, even when everything seems lost.